for none other than Woodrow Dantzler III.
Good morning, good morning, good morning, everyone. How is everyone doing? Hoping everyone is well. I am honored to be a part of this. Thank you, June. Thank you, Ms. Raquel, for letting me be a part of this, because one thing that I enjoy more than anything other than just pouring into my girls is just pouring into people, especially young people, because you guys are the future. You have so much potential, and it's up to us to make sure that you guys realize the potential that you possess and equip you with the tools to be able to go out and use the best, make the impact on this world that you were born to do. So I really want to get a chance to have good conversations with you guys. I have something I'm going to present. At first, I'm just going to talk through that a little bit. And then I'm going to leave a lot of time for you to ask questions. You know, you can, as we go through, if something pops up, type your question into the comment box, and, you know, the people will calculate that and we'll get to them. And then when we get to the end, you know, we love to hear your voices, you know, ask questions directly to me, and we'll go from there. So again, let's jump right into it. And what I'm going to be talking about today is just, you know, the 3 questions of life. So the question is, you see this, the second slide here, it says, you know, what if I said to you, you can make your way successful by properly answering 3 simple questions. And here's the thing, when we're talking about answering the question, the key word that I want you to focus on is properly. When you properly answer the question, you know, you'll be able to make your way successful. And that's what that's what life is all about, you know, kind of getting the question in your head, answering that question. And these 3 simple questions will allow you to tackle any task, no matter how big, no matter how small. So we can move on to the next slide. And just as he spoke, just a little background on myself. Again, he said, my name is Woodrow Dantzler III. Many know me as Woody Dantzler. Born and raised in Orangeburg, South Carolina. I grew up your typical youth. Wasn't too bad. I did the natural curious kid type stuff, but I was overall a good little boy. I grew up in an area in which most would call troubled or disparaging, because, you know, where my next door neighbor sold drugs. Right across the street from my house was the quote unquote crack house, where the individuals who brought the drugs went and used the drugs that they purchased from the guys next door to me. But for some reason, though I hung out with these individuals, they always, when they were getting ready to really go do something, they would always push me over and say, no, you can't go with us right now. We'll see you when we come back. Or they would say, no, it's something better for you. You know, I don't want you to get in too involved in this. So I knew, looking back on it, I realized that God had his hand on me. By speaking through these guys who were doing something they knew wasn't right, they saw something in me and had enough conviction to say to me that, no, we're not gonna let you do this. We're not gonna let you get too heavily involved with us. So when you look at that kid on the left, that little kid playing Little League football, who would know that from that picture there, that kid would go on to be a standout high school player, you know, stand out in college and actually make it to what they say the 1% of football is, you know, to play on the national stage in the National Football League. And that was a process, just like anything else. Being able to play ball on the highest level, it was a great thing for me because, again, telling you where I grew up, you know, we weren't rich, we weren't poor, we just had what we needed. You know, we had enough to get by. And that gift of playing ball allowed me to get my education at Clemson University. I actually was able to, while playing ball at Clemson, I was able to graduate in 3.5 years. You know, and that's just that process of dedication, and because I was able to look at these questions I'm going to pose to you, ask those questions, and use them to allow me to get to where I wanted to go, which was one goal was ultimately get my degree from a university, in which being the first one in my family to graduate. So that was a huge accomplishment for me. So we're going to move on to the next slide and jump right into these questions. So the three questions of life, as we look at it, and even just looking at the current climate that we're in today, this can apply because, as I mentioned, what you can do with these three questions, you can use them in, whatever thing that you want to put on it. So no matter how big, no matter how small, the first question is, what do you want? Second question is, why do you want it? And then the third is, how will you get it? So just thinking through those three questions, these are the questions that you're going to ask yourself to get yourself to where you want to go. So moving on to the next slide, jumping into the very first question. And that first question is, what do you want? And essentially here, what you're doing is when you ask yourself, what is it that I want? For example, what does I want? I want a clean room. So you know what? I just set myself a goal. So my goal can be, I want a clean room, or your goal can be, I want to graduate college. Your goal can be, I want to be able to be a lawyer. Your goal can be, I want to make an impact on this world. So I want to get into politics. These are all your goals. So what is it that I want? When you ask yourself that question, you set your goal. And the thing about a goal, that's your focus point. That is what you're focusing on. And one thing I learned, as currently I am a pharmaceutical sales rep, and they took us through driver's training, and they talked about focusing as far down the road as possible. Because one thing when you do that, when you're looking further down the road as possible, everything between the furthest point that you're looking at and back to yourself, you can actually see those imageries. But if you focus, they say most people actually focus about 6 feet in front of their car. So when you're focusing right 6 feet in front of your car or looking at your current circumstances, you tend to only see those current circumstances or what's right in front of your car. You can get surprised by the things coming up in front of you if you're not looking further down the road. So when you're focusing in on that goal and you're looking all the way down to your end goal, then what you're doing is you're seeing everything, and you're able to move and adjust to make sure that you are focusing on that goal and keeps you there and gets you where you want to go. So moving on to the next slide, the second question in the bunch. Why do you want it? Now, this question right here, as you can see from the caption, it says you must define your why before you can begin with your what and your how. So this is what you call your motivation. The answer to this question, when properly answered, will give you the motivation you need to seek after, pursue, and accomplish your goal. Your motivation has to be strong enough to push you to do what you need to do, even when you don't feel like doing it. Because you can all attest to, you've been places and you've had a certain situation happen where you had to do something. You got to do homework, or you got to study for a test, and it needs to be done, but you just don't feel like doing. That motivation is what's going to push you to do what you need to do even when you don't feel like doing it. Example, when I was coming out of college, just graduated Clemson, and I was preparing myself for the NFL Combine. And I decided to train with the track coach. His name was Coach Foster. And I was training with him because I wanted to get my 40 time down. Because we go to the Combine, you get tested on these various things. And I wanted to work on my stance, my start, to make sure I'm put my best foot forward when I go to the NFL Combine. And my first day out there, he asked me this question. He said, "Why do you play football?" And, just off the top of my head, I responded, because it's fun and I like playing it. He said, "Okay." Then he asked me again. He says, "Why do you play football?" And I said, because I enjoy playing with my teammates and it's fun. We build a bond. He said, okay. Then he said, "Stop." He said, "Now, I'm going to ask you again. Before you answer the question, I want you to sit and I want you to think. Before you open your mouth, I want you to think." So he said, "Okay, why do you play football? Why do you want to play football in the NFL?" So I paused for a moment and I really thought about it. So why am I playing this game? And then it hit me like a ton of bricks. I was like, I want to take care of my mom. I want to take care of my dad. My dad, for as long as I can remember, he actually passed back in 2005. He fought in the Vietnam War. And since I can remember, he's been disabled because he was mixed up in a chemical agent called Agent Orange, and it had him sick from the time I was born until the time, he passed away in 2005. So that was one of those things was, I want to take care of my dad. And then my mother, she was the one who worked third shift for 30 plus years. Even though she's working third shift, she's still able to provide for us. We had breakfast. We were getting to school. She had dinner cooked for us. She's working from 11 to 7 every night. Sometimes she's working from 7 to 7. So just to see the strength in my mother and see how she worked so hard for us, my motivation and to answer my question, why do I want to play in the National Football League, was I don't want my mom to struggle anymore. I want to be able to take care of her. I want to be able to take care of my dad, and a chance to play in the NFL afford me that opportunity. So when I answered that question, said I want to take care of my mom and take care of my dad. He said, now that's what you focus on when those days you don't feel like training, when you don't feel like running that sprint all the way through, when you don't feel like film study. I want you to think about your mom and your dad, and I want you to be able to go ahead and push through, because your why is the glue that's going to hold question 1 and question 3 together, and it's what's going to make your way successful. To me, it's the most important. You got to have your why. You have to understand your why, because when you answer why you want to do something, what you're doing is giving yourself the motivation and the push to do so. So we've talked about what is it that you want. You just set your goal. And then we talk about the why. Like I said, the most important, that's that motivation factor. Your why, that thing is going to make you do what you want to do when you don't feel like it. And then we're rounding off and going into the next slide, which is the last question. How will you get it? And this is simple. This is one of those things of all you're doing here when you're saying how I'm going to do it, you're mapping out your plan. It's that those who fail to plan, let me make sure I say this right. When you plan, you got to make sure you have a plan in place. If you don't have a plan in place, what you're basically doing is you're setting yourself up to fail. So to get from where you are to where you want to be, you're going to need a plan. And that's what I was talking about earlier. We were talking about what is my goal? My goal is to graduate from high school. That's my goal. Or my goal is to graduate from college. There's some things that's going to have to take place. I got to make sure I'm taking the right classes at the right time and getting in the right slots in my school to make sure that I'm taking time out to study. All these things are part of your plan. How much do I need to study in this subject? How much do I need to study in that subject? Okay, let's take a little bit deeper. I'm going to dig into our current climate just a little bit. You think about your neighborhood, and I look around and I think back to where I grew up and looking at the rundown houses in my neighborhood and those different things. So, hey, I want to do something to change the outlook of my community. So what is it that I can do to cause some kind of effect into my community to change things around? So now I start mapping out a plan to get in contact with the city councilman. I start mapping out a plan to be able to understand what it takes to condemn or build a building. So I'm mapping out these different plans to make sure that I'm getting accomplished what I want to get accomplished. And here's something that you must realize when creating a plan. A plan is not always going to work. It's not always going to work. There's a man by the name of, you may have heard the name, Walt Disney. He tried so many times, he actually got fired from his job at the paper company, dropped out of school, high school dropout, but then he was able to devise a plan. That plan didn't work. He went under. He lost his first business. He tried again and did something else. It failed. It went under. But he kept doing, as you plan, it's like a GPS. You set a calculation, and let's say you make a wrong turn or you do the wrong thing. What that GPS does, it doesn't just shut off. It recalculates the route. So whenever you set a plan in motion, it doesn't get you the results that you're looking to get. All you have to do is take a moment to sit back and recalculate. And when you recalculate, you're resetting yourself up and you're looking at that plan to make sure that you're getting to where you want to go. And that's what these 3 questions are all about. You have to be able, because here's the thing, when you realize the potential that's on the inside of you, when you realize what you're able to do, what you're good at, those things that bother you, those things that you want to see change, those things that you've been given the ability to change, by asking yourself 3 questions, you can actually set that in motion. And like I said, it's even whether you want to change the world by running for president, or you want to change the dynamic of your room by making it clean. So like I said, you ask the question, what is it that I want? I want a clean room. Why do I want it? Because if I don't clean my room, I won't be able to go out and hang out with my friends. I won't be able to go out to the party. I won't be able to, play my particular sport that I'm in. So how will I do it? First thing I'm going to do, I'm going to start with getting my clothes together. Put all my dirty clothes in the pile. Everything that's clean, I'll make sure it's folded up, put it in the drawer. Things that need to be hung up, I'm going to put it in the closet. So now I'm devising a plan to clean my room. Once I get everything off the floor, put it in its place, and I make sure I'm a vacuum. So these are the things that you're doing. Like I said, no matter how big or how small, asking yourself these 3 questions will afford you the ability to make your way successful. Now, here's the thing. That word, when I go back to the beginning, when I said properly answer these 3 questions. This is not something you just say, what does I want? I want to do this. And then you just kind of haphazardly. It's going to take some thought. It's going to take some planning. It's going to really take you digging into yourself to ask you that question. It's like me when Coach Foster was asking the question, why do you want to play in the NFL? And I just gave him some off the top of my head answer that really he saw straight through. And again, when we're talking about that why, if your why isn't strong enough, you're going to quit every time. You're not going to see it through. And sometimes just the fact that you want to do it is strong enough, but not everyone is the same. So this is what I'm talking about when I'm saying, how will you get it? When you're saying, what is it that you want when you set your plan? Why does I want to do it? You give yourself that motivation to do it. And then how will you get it? When you get that, how will you get it? And you set that plan, that's when you're on your way. Case in point, one of the things I've been sitting back here, and because one thing I love speaking into young people, and I'm giving you a peer into my own life, I love developing individuals because I truly, truly believe, we were all endowed by our Creator with these gifts. We all have them. And not everyone realizes the gift that they have, but they all have them. So myself, I've been given a unique ability to, when I see people, I see their greatness. And I want them to see it for themselves. So my whole goal in life is to help people recognize the gift that they have, unlock that gift that they have, and then be able to walk in it for the rest of their lives. And that's when you're talking about true success, maximizing your true potential in whatever field or whatever task you choose to do. So what I'm going to do, I want to be a better advocate. I want to be a better individual to be able to help these individuals realize their gifts. So that's my ultimate goal. I want to be able to do that. So why do I want to do it? Because, I truly love people and I don't want to see people fail. I just want to see the best for people. So how I plan to do it, one thing I just decided to do, right before I got on this call, I was on the phone with Liberty University. I'm preparing to go back to school and get my master's. At 40 years old, I'm going back to school to get my master's in applied psychology and in developmental psychology, because I want to truly understand human behavior. I want to understand how the mind works. I want to understand why people do what they do. So when I'm working with individuals, when I'm counseling individuals, when I'm developing individuals, I'm able to put my best foot forward because I truly understand it. And now I can guide them along these lines based on their own individual mentality. And that's something that I want to. So I just took those 3 questions. What does I want? I want to help develop. And why do I want to do it? Because I love them. How I'm going to do it? I'm going to get myself a master's so I can truly understand human behavior, so I can best be of service to the people that I serve. So it's really just that simple. And what I do, I challenge you, moving on to the next slide, I challenge you to be able to peer into yourself and figure out and give yourself answers to these questions. And they say it all the time that the children are our future. You definitely, the individual you guys are, our next generation, you are the future. And what it is about you is the fact that we have to take the torch as far as we can. But when we pass it off to you, you are to take it further for the next generation. We move to the next slide. And that's what 4-H is all about. That's what these questions are doing. Your goal, your motivation, and your plan. So that's what these questions are doing. And when you answer these 3 questions, You would note that I said it's not you will be successful. You will make your way successful. Because when I say make your way successful, because as you go through this process, you're going to encounter trials. You're going to encounter tribulation. You're going to encounter setbacks. You know, I read it says that, you know, a righteous man falls 7 times. But the thing that makes that person righteous, a successful person falls 7 times. What makes that person successful is the fact that on that 7th time when they fell, they didn't stay on the ground. You're going to have to get back up. And that's where that motivation comes into play. Focusing on your end goal. I'm not focused on the fact that I just failed. I'm still on my goal. I'm still focused on my goal. And I have the motivation to get things done. And this was a obstacle that I have to overcome. So I may have to recalculate my plan a little bit. But the thing is, it's already in you. You just have to do what you need to do to let it out. When you were born with everything that you needed to be successful. Everything was already in you. You think about a vehicle that comes off the assembly line. When that vehicle comes off the assembly line, it is fully completed. It has everything it needs to drive down the road safely, efficiently, over the course of time. So you're the same way. Even as a baby, you have to grow into your greatness, but you've already have your greatness on the inside of you. But as you go through life, you'll learn, you'll grow, you'll be more mature, you'll be more stronger, you'll learn, and you will be able to accomplish these things. So it's really that simple. These 3 questions, again, properly answering these questions will allow you to make your way successful. And that's the key point, making it successful, because you have the power to do that. No one can stop you but you. The only power over you that any other individual have is the power that you give them. And it's just that simple. So in closing, we can move on to the next slide. And I think I saw some questions come through. So if you still have a question, you can still put it in the chat in the comment section. If you want to, I don't know the program, I guess probably I think you can raise your hand on here, and then your line will be unmuted and you can ask your question directly. But I want to hear from you. Tell me what your thoughts are. I don't even mind you challenging me. Challenge me on what I just said. Let's have a little dialogue until our time is up. So do we have a first question?
They can also unmute themselves and ask their question, or they can put it in the group chat, whatever you guys are comfortable with. And I don't see any questions right now, but I do have a question. When you say grow into your greatness, I love that. I love that comment. How did you grow into your greatness? Like, what was your own experience growing into your greatness?
My experience growing into my greatness was, one, though my parents split when I was in middle school, I still had both parents in my life, and being able to learn from my mother, being able to learn from my father. And the biggest thing was, being involved in sports. Sports teaches you so much. It teaches you discipline. It teaches you the ability to overcome. It teaches you these little quirks to help you push through and really develop into your own person. But I think the biggest thing that shaped me into my greatness was when I truly and fully understand the person of Jesus Christ and what he meant to me and what he has been doing throughout my life, even when I did not know it. And when I came into that, I really, really began to take a look at myself, and I sought out individuals wiser than myself. I sought out advice. I sought out mentors. I sought out people that were good in areas I wanted to be good in. And I pushed myself to learn, because one of the things that really holds me to the fire is I remember getting ready to go off to college. And my daddy left me with these words. And he said, right before I left, he said, don't you go up there and be just a football player. So many times we allow our gifts to pigeonhole us into a certain lane. And yes, I'm gifted at playing football, but my gifts are so much more than football. And just being around individuals, intelligent individuals, and, talking with my father and my uncles, having that support system, that helped me grow into my greatness. And the thing about that is challenging times and tribulation. That's what really pushes you through. You think about how a pearl is made. A pearl is started with indigestion. So the clam gets some food, gets part of it, and then all of a sudden it has an upset stomach and it coats the area. Next thing you know, you have a pearl. You think about a diamond is created through pressure. And so that's what it is. You have to be able to take a look at a challenge and be able to walk through it and understand and let that challenge push you into who you need to be. So one thing the challenge will do to you, and it's from a good friend of mine. He says it this way. His name is Marcus Lattimore. And he said it perfectly. He said, adversity will introduce a man or a woman to themselves. And that's what you got to realize when you're faced with adversity, when you're faced with challenges, it's going to introduce you to who you are. And either you're going to let who you truly are shine, or you're going to take who you are and suppress it and succumb to the pressure. And I don't believe anyone on this call would do such a thing. And that's one thing that my father didn't allow me to do. He didn't allow me to succumb to the pressures. He didn't allow me to succumb to my environment. And what also he did, he taught me how to think. I think that's the biggest thing, learning how to think for yourself. Whenever I had an issue, I had something I wanted to talk with my dad about, I asked him a question. And he would never answer my question. What he would do, he would ask me a question himself. And what that did, that allowed me to think through the situation myself, and it taught me how to grow. So those things all together is what helped me grow into my greatness. And I'm still pushing to be greater, never satisfied. And that's another thing, just not being satisfied, always looking to be better. And this is, again, I'm always speaking to guys who spoke to my life. My high school head coach, Tommy Brown, he made mention, he said, either you're getting better or you're getting worse. You never stay the same. So that's another thing that pushes me to always look for ways to improve myself.
Good. I think we have a couple of questions in the group chat, but I also have a question here from Facebook. Mr. Dantzler, are you nervous about going back to school? And what are you most fearful about? And how do you deal with fear?
I was a little nervous in the beginning, but then I really start to focus on, it's one of those things. If I just can picture, I look at, again, Jesus is one of my role models, and I can remember him being in the garden right before he was about to be crucified. And he was talking to his father. He said, let this cup pass from me. Essentially saying, Daddy, I don't want to do this. I understand what's about to happen. I understand what they're about to do to me. And I really don't want to do it. So if there's another way, when he said, let this cup pass from me, if there's another way, let's do that way, because I don't want to do this. So I'm sitting here, man, I haven't been to school since 2001. I don't know if I'll be able to understand the information. Will I be able to pass these tests? I got work, I got my business, I got my kids, I got my wife. Will I be able to? And so all this stuff is coming to me, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, now let's refocus. What Jesus did in that moment, he remembered us. He saw each and every one of our faces and said, his love for us trumped how he felt. So he said, not my will, let your will be done. So it's not about what I feel. The people that I'm assigned to, the people that's going to cross my path, like individuals on this call, to be able to speak into their lives, they mean more to me than my apprehensions of what may happen to me when I go back to school at 40 years old. I haven't been out of school over 20 years. But there's two things you can do. You think about fear. There's two ways you can look at fear. How you overcome it. Either you can forget everything and run, or you can face everything and rise. So what I choose to do is face everything and rise, because that's what's in me. And that's what's in everyone if we choose to allow it to come out. So I don't forget what's going on. I don't forget everything, and I don't turn my tail and run. I face everything and rise, because that's my nature. And that's all of our natures if we allow it to come out.
We had some more questions in the chat. And Sydney, if you want to unmute yourself and ask your question, you can go ahead, Sydney.
Okay, so I just asked, so although your motivation for your wanting to be a professional football player was super strong, do you believe it was the only thing that kept you motivated, or were there other factors along your journey that kept you motivated?
Yes, there were. I mean, that's the ultimate. That was my ultimate motivation. But again, I had this thing in me, because honestly, I'm gonna give you some more insight. Honestly, there came a point in my college career where I was tired of football because it turned from a game, and even now you look at it now, it is not the pure game of fun. When you think about a game is supposed to be fun, but the game of football has turned so political, so money driven, so everything else but fun. And I wanted to really just walk away from it. But it was two things. One, I pledged to, get my degree. And I know that this college scholarship, this football scholarship was paying my tuition. And then two, didn't want to let my parents down. But then three, another motivation I have, I do not like letting people down. That's one of my biggest motivating factors. My teammates, if I was to walk away from football, I'm letting my teammates down. If I was to walk away from football, I'm letting my parents down, my siblings down. Even now as I walk, I'm thinking about what I'm doing with my career now. I have a wife. I have two little girls. Well, not little. My older one is 17. My youngest is 11. But I have two girls. So every decision I make, I have to be mindful of them. So not wanting to let people down is another big motivation factor for me. So in order to not let people down, I continue to push myself to be the best I can possibly be. Because again, my life is not about me. My life's about those that I come in contact with, those that I've been chose to speak into their lives, to give them some semblance of hope. Because that's one thing that we're missing in our society today is hope. We're losing our hope. So I want to make sure that my kids and the generation with my kids have hope for tomorrow. So I can't quit. I can't allow myself. I can go and have a little pity party for a little bit. Nothing wrong with that. But I remember having a job, and one of my managers, I was selling cars, and I hated it. I hated it with a passion. He said, you know what? I know this job can be tough at times. He said, you know what? At the end of your shift, if you want to quit, quit. Just make sure you rehire yourself by the time your work shift starts the next day. So that's one of the things. So it's nothing wrong with experiencing those emotions of doubt, of fear. Deal with them. But then when it comes to an end, you have to make sure you get yourself back on that saddle, get yourself back up, and push towards your goal. Remember, staying focused on that goal. But yeah, another big motivating factor for me was not wanting to let people down.
Thank you.
You are welcome.
We've got a question here from Aisha saying, being a person of color, you may have a plan and be very well prepared, but when situations happen that throw you off because of the color of your skin and who you are, some instances you cannot prepare yourself enough for. How do you overcome that?
For me, it's pretty simple. I'm a black and white guy. I mean, no pun intended. But another ability that's been given to me is to be able to break things down to its simplest form, and to be able just to really focus on the things that I can control. I'm going to control. If I can't control it, I'm not going to try to control it. So let's take a traffic stop, for instance. Because of the color of my skin, I may be targeted. This cop that pulls me over may have something against me. I cannot control his actions. I cannot control what he plans to do. Or what I can control is what I can control. So I'm going to do my part. And if that's the day that this individual tries to act a fool, then that's on that individual. It's not going to be on me. Too many times we cannot prepare for every situation. But for the situation that we can prepare for, we prepare for. And I learned this from another coach of mine when I was playing with the Dallas Cowboys. Bill Parcells, excellent coach, love the guy. Every Thursday, what we would do before the games, every Friday, we would go over a situation that is so rare. Like, let's say, for instance, we'll come up, he said, okay, we're going to work over the fair catch rule at the end of the half. This has only happened 2 times that for the entire time the NFL has been in play. But just in case it happens, we're going to be prepared for it. So that just comes into when we're talking about asking these 3 questions that we're setting our plan, really think through. When I'm saying properly ask it, think through the situation. Okay, I'm getting ready to go do this. What could happen? What might happen? What can I be in? What can I own? What's going to have to, it's going to be what it is. It's just being able to make sure I'm focusing in and controlling what I can control. When you step outside your limits and you begin to try to control stuff, you can't control, that's when disappointment comes in. That's when heartbreak comes in. That's when all these other negative emotions will step in and deter you from where you're supposed to be going and what you're supposed to be doing. So as a Black man in our country, and I can truly say, I mean, which is kind of odd, the privilege that I've been afforded, I have not had a situation in which I had to, that was out of pocket. So, but it all boils down to, again, controlling what we can control. Make sure we do right because it's right. You know, we don't allow other people, because of their actions, to make us do something that's not in our character or that's not of good character. So controlling what I can control and allowing God to handle the rest is how I handle these situations in which, as you would say, you may not have control over. Because I may not have control over everything in the situation, but I have full and total control over me in the situation. And that's where the focus for me has to lie.
Okay, before we take another question from the chat box, I have a question from Facebook. You talk about your current motivational factors, but do you remember your biggest motivational factors when you were in middle or high school? And this came from Noah.
All right, my biggest motivational factors in middle school, you know what? I was truly a happy-go-lucky kid. To be honest, I wish I had more direction when I was younger. I was very naive when I was younger, and I was just, I kind of just floated through life, honestly. I didn't have any true motivations. I didn't have any true focus points or guidance. Not I don't say I didn't have guidance, but I wasn't looking into the future. I wasn't, what do I want to be when I grow up? I had none of that. I was just existing in life and enjoying myself as a youth. Honestly, it wasn't until, which is why I'm so amped, the fact that I'm seeing all these young people on this call at much younger age than I was. And I still got some middle school kids, some high school kids, really mapping out their plans at this age. I didn't do that. So I got a late start. So my motivation was just I got a football game, I got class, school came pretty easy to me. So it's just what I got to do in the moment. Today I got this class. When I get home, I'm gonna go home, change my clothes, and I'm going, having fun. That was really my motivation. But there was nothing really pushing and motivating me at that time. But as I grew and as I learned myself and as I got around different people, I began to see the need for a plan. So, but in middle school, I was just happy to be alive and enjoying every moment.
All right. Does anyone want to unmute yourself before one of our hosts asks a question from the chat box? Anyone want to unmute yourself and ask your question live? Want to make sure we give you the opportunity to do that. All right. Rachel, can you give us a question from the chat box?
Yeah, I've got a question here from Paul that is, how essential are people in this process? How do you use networking and relationships to your advantage generally or personally?
Networking is huge. And I'm gonna take a steal from one of the richest men in the world by the name of Warren Buffett. He made this statement. He said, everyone around here thinks I'm smart. They think I'm so smart, intellectual brilliant. He said, I'm not. And he put his hands up. He said, I know about this much. This is what I know. He knows investing. He knows the stock market. He said, I know this much. Everything else, I reach out to, I hire, or I consult with someone else. So it is very, very vital because everyone, we're born with gifts, unique gifts, and they complement one another. You think about a puzzle. If you just take one piece of that puzzle, you don't know what that is. You take 2 or 3 pieces of that puzzle, you kind of maybe make it out. But if you get all the pieces of the puzzle, you put it together, now you got a beautiful picture. So in every organization, that's why jobs are different, because I have a good skill set here. This person have another skill set here. So when you come together, you combine those 2 skill sets, you make a more beautiful picture. But on top of that, what you can do, you can make a greater impact because not only do I don't have to try to learn, I can learn this new skill and make myself better. And same thing, you can push that person to be better as well. But then again, it's just like combining those two puzzle pieces. They look different, but when they come together, they fit so well and they make a greater impact on the vision. So as far as networking is very key, is very vital. You know, some would say it's not what you know, it's who you know, but it's a combination of both. Because if you know someone, if you don't bring anything to the table as far as what you know, then you're not going to make a connection. So it's both. It's what you know and it's who you know. So you got to prepare yourself to walk into that room. You got to prepare yourself to be able to speak intelligently and know what you're talking about when you're encountering the individuals, because it's not going to be the factor of when, you know, just someone else bringing something to the table. You have to make sure you're bringing something to the table as well to ensure that these individuals will want to connect with you and they'll see something in you and they want to help you. And someone gave this example before, you know, we were talking about networking, and he described networking like this. He said, you ever been on the, you know, just seeing somebody on the side of the road and they just buy their car and they just kind of sitting around waiting. Most times what you're going to do, you're going to drive right by that person. But if you see an individual actually out and pushing their own car, you're going to be more apt to get out, stop, pull off, get out your car and help them push their car. So that's what I'm saying to you. You got to make sure you're pushing your car. So when people see you pushing your car, they know you're doing something. They know you're bringing something to the table, and they're going to want to be able to align with you and help you just as you will help them. Because again, you both are bringing something to the table. So yes, networking is very, very key, because individuals working together makes a stronger impact.